So this is how you do. This is this is how they get you. Oh my goodness. So Don Hang is broken here. Wait, what? Herda? Hello, YouTube. Welcome to the Endgame. Yes, it is here. The new Simulated Universe Endgame game mode, which is a permanent game mode that has been added to the Simulated Universe as an addition. And it's really fun, in my opinion. It's very hard. It's very challenging. It has also a progression ladder. It feels good to progress through it. But it also feels good that you're able to find ways to cheese certain bosses and find ways to be more creative. It's really, really fun overall. I try to auto it, right? Using my cheese strategy of remembrance and stuff like that. But the monsters hit really hard. I'll show you guys in this clip right here. So here we're at the final boss of the floor. The boss legitimately almost one-shots Don Hang, but then he adds stacks to my Don Hang. So when my Don Hang moved, he instantly died, right? Because if you guys saw there, he had 4 stacks of the wind shred. And so when Don Hang took his turn, he just instantly died. There's a lot of rewards to be had here. There's 4,500 crystals that you can get throughout the whole game mode. It's permanent. There's no time rush. There's no feeling of FOMO. It's there forever. So take your time with it. And you're also getting 2 modeling resin once you beat the game for free as well, which is really nice. Game mode is very similar to the original Simulated Universe. Once you do it for the first time, you'll instantly get the hang of it. And so in this guide, we'll go over the basics, the necessities that you need to know, as well as a strategy that I found to be really OP for cheesing early game and not needing the progression system in order to beat the game itself. We'll hit the start exploring. We'll see that there are difficulties similar to our old one. Select a difficulty and then launch Simulated Universe. We are at our character selection screen. Very similar. Then we go ahead and we select our path. For example, I can pick destruction. It's going to have these path buffs, right? And then the die effect. I'll explain the die effect at a later stage when it makes more sense. We'll also have our path resonance, very similar. Once we start, we are now back to a very familiar state, right? Where we select one of the 3 options to start with. I'm just going to pick the normal career. Now it will tell us that there are 3 phases. These are very similar to the original, where there are typically 2 elite bosses before the final boss, and then there's in-between domains, right? This is the same exact thing. So the starting is very similar as well. You're just gonna start off by killing 3 patrols. Once you finish killing 3 patrols, that's where the difference comes in. We finish fighting the patrol. So instead, normally you guys will see that there are 2 paths, right? In the normal version, maybe like a combat event here, a red portal and a blue portal, right? But instead of that, you get this commune device now. Basically, it opens up a grid that you can choose your selected path now. You could select, a combat, which is the red portal, or an occurrence, which is a blue portal, right? But then there's a lot more gimmicks to it. There are similar domains to the normal version, like combat right here, boss. You have your occurrence, you have your respite, but there are also new domains that you haven't seen before that are now added here as well, which are like the rewards, adventure, and we'll talk more about those domains when we get there. And then occurrence to swarm, right? And then the boss to swarm. Let me quickly explain this part of the UI. So during the UI, there are 2 phases of it, where there's a select target and then a move target, right? So there's a select and then a movement. During the selection phase, this is where this die effect come in. This is a die effect. Before each selection, we are presented a die. This die is from the same concept that you saw earlier in the path selection screen, where they have special effects depending on the certain path that you select. So each path you choose will have a set of dice. So what are die effects? Well, basically die effects add changes to your node to make it more special, change it up, extract resources from it, add certain effects like trotter to the node, enhance the node. Each of these die have special effects for the nodes. So for example, for the destruction path, this one right here, select a domain from the combat and then immediately get the reward from that. So basically extract the resources and turn it blank. For example, here it tells us to select a domain from the combat. So either a combat domain, and then afterwards we will get an enhanced beacon. So let me show you guys here. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to select this one and we confirm target. And so now we see that this domain is now an enhanced beacon target domain. That comes to my next point. What is an enhanced beacon? Oh, if we click this question mark here, it will explain to you guys what beacons are. If we scroll all the way down to the bottom and we see beacons. You remember the normal events, how there's like trotters that roam around randomly? Well, those are what beacons are. They're just little special events within a node that, for example, an enhanced beacon, the enemies are a little bit stronger, but at the end, all the blessings will be leveled up. And then there's a new addition as well, which is a curio trotter, right? This box right here, this is the path buff that you guys normally see. So after achieving victory in a domain elite, we obtain an extra blessing. This is for destruction particularly. And then every battle that we win will also increase the damage dealt by all allies by 8%. So currently right now we have a 16% boost. But also note, we see the countdown. If I click to go on to the next node, check it out. The countdown goes to 12, and I'll explain that in a little bit, but essentially there's a limited amount of turns before the enemies start to get more powerful. Die effect under the destruction path. When entering combat in this turn, all allies damage increases by 50%. However, we see that there are no combat nodes, so this effect is actually useless because we are faced with 2 occurrence nodes. And then there's also new events. Definitely something I haven't seen before. But it's a bad one. Okay, this is why I hate occurrence. Occurrence are the worst to go into. They are so RNG. I would typically avoid them. If you want to preview your grid to see if this affects anything or if this is applicable, you can view it here. And let's say there's no available nodes that can be affected by this event, and maybe I want to reroll, then I can press the reroll button, right? But then you only get 1 reroll per like the whole entire run. It's kind of very strategic. So now we're in the select target screen because this die tells us to select a domain first, domain node, and turn it into a combat node first before we can go on to the movement phase. So I'm gonna turn this one, for example. It doesn't really matter. And yeah, because I want to choose this reward node, right? So yeah, it gave us a few cool rewards, enhancing our blessings. Ooh, 3 enhancements. Look at that. See? Typically the rewards are good. Nodes that I would consider solid would be rewards and adventure, the golden nodes. Any nodes with enhancements, right, or with beacons are pretty solid as well. So the ones especially with trotters are really good too. So let's talk a little bit about this transaction node because it's a little different than the original one. First off, we see that there are 2 shops. One, there's the Herda shop, and one there's Scroolum shop, right? He sells us blessings. Depending, it's randomized. He sells blessing. You can buy it with your cosmic fragments. Over here, we have Herda. She sells curios, and it's 3 of them. It's randomized. Right now, I would avoid early stages like the first phase and then the first half of the second phase to avoid these transactions. And so we see that I couldn't buy anything and there's nothing worthwhile for me to buy, so I kind of just lose out on that node. So here, take a look at this. Now we are at the first boss on the phase 1. You could select the boss, but it's very important to read what the boss is providing you once you defeat it, because it tells us here, while battling the swarm stings, it tells us if we fight the last boss, it will be inflicted with ice weakness automatic. So depending on what team you want to run and which one is your strongest character, you will want to pick a certain path. For example, I'm running an ice team here. I'm running Herda, Pella, and March. The boss is not weak to ice at the end of the stage. It's only weak to imaginary and quantum. And so now we're in phase 2, which is the longest phase. And so we see the path has been expanded quite a bit. Now, you know, this is where the strategy comes in. So it's very important that we pick our decisions wisely because there are going to be consequences for it. And that's where I love this game mode. There's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of options. And yeah, so this is a great opportunity to show you guys what is in the adventure node. Let's take a look at it. Over there's barrels, and I'm going to go ahead and grab Imbibitor Lunae here since we might need him. When we start the challenge, we see that we're going to have to break all the jars before the time runs out. And so this is going to take a while, right? But with Imbibitor Lunae, we can cheese it a bit, right? Using his technique. And we get the rewards here. But yeah, that's basically the adventure. There's also trotters. They basically make you kill pigs. So here's an example of a trade-off. My countdown timer is about to hit 0 if I move 1 more time. However, there's a reward chest over here that I kind of want. Do I want the reward chest or do I want the enemy to get a 5% increased damage and reduced damage take? That's the trade-off we're kind of taking over here. So countdown is now 0. I got 100 fragments. Was that worth the enemy getting a little stronger? Probably not, but it's a good showcase for you guys. That's why. Now we enter this one, Disruption level 1. So we see that Planar Disarray, all enemies in battle will receive a boost to their states. So basically it stacks and it gets a lot stronger. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Communing Trail. Which is kind of like the Simulated Universe ability tree, but with a little bit of like achievement hunting added onto that gives you rewards, and a lot simpler. It looks a little bit complicated at first, but you don't upgrade any of these abilities. They are automatically increased once you keep playing the game, and you are able to get these points that are then automatically placed. For example, you get hunt points that are then placed on the hunt path, which will then give you the special ability unlocks. And this is applicable to all paths, basically a buff to every single path. It doesn't matter if you're running Remembrance, you're still going to get the hunt buff. If you're running Destruction, you're going to get every single other buff as well. The choosing kind of really just, it's very limited, but it comes from unlocking the Way of the Path Strider. So this is where the achievement S comes in. So in the Simulated Universe, the normal version, in order to upgrade your ability tree, you have certain things like these ability points that you can use in order to upgrade your tree. It is the same concept here. In order to upgrade your progression tree here, you have to get the points somehow. And this is where you get the points. You do it through this achievement ladder, basically progression ladder, where once you clear a certain, meet a certain requirement, you will get, 4 points into the destruction tree here, for example. It tells me trigger planar disarray for a total of 2 times in Simulated Universe in order to unlock this reward. +1 to your abundance tree and +3 to your nihility tree, and you get these additional rewards, which are really nice. Extra crystals, resources. You're not just trying to beat this by itself, you're also trying to upgrade the tree in order to grab all of the rewards. And yeah, so that's basically how the communing tree works. Very simple. You don't really do much except for, hey, look at the next task. What do I want to do? And as long as you just play the game, you will get that tree relatively unlocked. Also note that the Simulated Universe Swarm Disaster do not drop relics. We don't farm this for relics. This is a one-time event. Technically, it is a one-time thing, but it has replayability to it. Once you unlock the whole tree, you will get the propagation path. So I'll be talking about the strategy now while providing some B-rolls of the example run of the 3rd phase on the hardest difficulty, right? Difficulty 5. Trust me, it's a lot harder than it looks, but with this strategy, we can make it very easy and very cheesy. Remembrance, I love using it. I use it to clear the regular Simulated Universe all the time, as it is extremely AFK, reliable for anybody. Even if you're not using OP characters like your Pard, all you need is March and a healer. That's really all you need. And an AoE user, typically. And then you just build them tanky. Let's talk a little bit about how Remembrance works. The Remembrance path is even more OP, as you guys will see in a bit. I will be using like just only 4-star units to defeat the final boss on the hardest difficulty. The reason is that this game mode will give you more blessings than the normal version, and that's where the strategy shines, because Remembrance, you don't need anything else but the card. There are 2 particular cards that you want, that you need actually, in order for it to work. Where does the damage come from? Well, it comes from these 2 cards mainly here. Without these 2 cards, you will most likely not be able to do damage. But what's so special about Dissociation? So Dissociation is a debuff that when applied after the enemy freeze is removed, it will deal additional ice damage equal to 30% of the enemy's max HP. This is where the big damage comes from. So let me kind of break down the flow. First, we freeze the enemy, right? Using the Resonance path first, typically to lower the resistance. And then if the enemy isn't frozen yet, we'll use March's ult. But essentially, you're just trying to freeze at this stage. And then the second step is to apply Dissociation through the Gold Blessing card right here, right? This one. After we apply Dissociation, we then attack the enemy again while they are frozen to trigger Dissociation early, removing it and dealing a ton of damage. And that's through the second card here, this one. Then you just repeat the process and apply the freeze, and then yeah. So what's the order of resonance formation should I take? This is the one where, after 3 blessings, 6 blessings, and 10 blessings, you'll get the formation, right? Okay, so I'm gonna talk about tier list here. First two blessings are, like I mentioned, the most important ones. The enemy has almost 100% resistance to crowd control unless you shred their resistances. Also, the enemies on the hardest difficulties will hit like a truck. Like it will one-shot your team if you don't have any defensive blessings. So yeah, curios do not really matter. There's only one or two decent ones. Just grab whatever you can, especially the ones that give you more remembrance cards. So let's talk about team strategies. So for teammates, there's kind of two stages. There's the late game and the early game stages. For the late game stage, you'll want a ice team consisting of March, a healer, and an AoE unit, and either, you know, Pella or Japard, maybe another ice unit. Luocha will work a lot better here, but Natasha will work fine, as you guys will see me clearing it with her. For the AoE character, you can bring like anybody, like Serval. They're mainly there to apply dissociation. They're not there to deal damage. You need to build tank on everybody essentially. Herta works best because she has so many AoE attacks, like low energy, follow-up attack. You want to run tank characters typically with their most tanky stats. So defense body, defense orbs, HP orbs, things of those nature. Because you're not trying to deal damage, you're trying to survive and apply dissociation and remove it, because that's where your damage comes from. It's not from your characters, it's from the remembrance card that I mentioned earlier. As for early game, you're not going to get those cards early game, right? So you're not going to do any damage at all. That's why it's very important to bring damage dealers at first. So for example, bring someone like Danheng IL, Kafka, Blade, those guys instead of Herta in order to do damage until you get the main blessings for the build. As you guys see in the video, in the phases, I brought Danheng, right? He's my main DPS up until the last stage, and then I swap him out with Herta in order to utilize the dissociation mechanic. Well, that's all really for team composition. So yeah, just enjoy this battle. This is the hardest stage in the... This is the final boss. Feel free to check it out and kind of analyze it if you want. So after the showcase, we will be talking about the die effects and how to utilize the die effects for remembrance in order to duplicate grids and nodes that are valuable to us. And yeah. Oh yeah, so my characters, I just build them really tanky, and that's pretty much it. You see Herta has 3.3k HP, right? 1500 defense. All she's doing is applying dissociation. select one domain and copy it to the adjacent location before applying recollection to it. Basically, you could duplicate grids, right? It's just broken. You could duplicate like the controller, like the adventure node like 20 times. It's freaking OP. But I barely have any commune trails unlocked. They're not really like super necessary, right? I only have 3 for remembrance when there's like 20. So yeah, you could totally beat it without it. You gotta get lucky. You can't do it 100% of the time, right? But like, I'd say like 1 out of 3 times. It's pretty good if you know the strategy. Strategy is just simple. So here, you have this one. Try to reroll for that when you have an adventure node, which is the one that you get controllers, because that gives you guaranteed the level 2 blue cards, right? So you need that for sure. In this case here, I see a controller. I'll try to reroll for that and try to get all my nodes right here to become controllers, right? Or adventure node. That's pretty much the strategy. If I don't get this on the first run, I will reroll. I'll reroll. That means I leave. We see here we have this node, right? So we can just select, we want that. That's what we want. We want to select this one right here, and then any adjacent, any one of these could become another adventure node. So watch this. Boom, this one. See, now we have 2 adventure nodes. These give the best reward, like I mentioned, right? These are really OP. They give really good rewards. TLDR, get as many remembrance cards as possible, duplicate as many of the adventure nodes as possible, and then save your currency towards the end in order to upgrade all the cards. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole strategy. Very simple, very easy. It's going to be hard at first when you first start off because your characters are weak, so bring DPS. In the late game stages, you'll be one-shotting bosses in less than 5 minutes, right? That's my thought on the new Simulated Universe, The Swarm Disaster. Hopefully you guys like this guide. Even though I don't make too much content for Simulated Universe, it's very enjoyable, and I know a lot of people like it as well. So hopefully you guys like this content. Bye.